Last week in our comments, we got a request from Mary. Mary requested either an apple pie or a peach cobbler. Unfortunately, peaches are out of season because I do prefer a peach cobbler over an apple pie. However, when I went to the store, there was no shortage of Granny Smith. Welcome back to the Old Recipe Kitchen. My name is Yvonne. This week we will be making an apple pie. I think it's been about 14 years, maybe even more, since I've made an apple pie. I think the last time I made one, I got a recipe from online. And now, since we're doing the Old Recipe Kitchen, we do things by the book. What better book than King Arthur Flour, The Baker's Companion? This is a book of not only what to do in terms of recipe, but how to do it. It has so many methods and is so useful. One of the best things about an apple pie is the pie crust itself. Now, the easy way out would be to go to the store and buy you a crust. However, since we're doing things by the book, we used our good old friend King Arthur and found a recipe on page 408. Inside, they have 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of cold shortening, and 1.5 to 1/2 a cup of cold water. So I've successfully combined all the ingredients, and now I'm going to dump them onto a floured surface and knead them into a ball. Let's hope that this tastes better than the last time I did crust. We'll see. So we're gonna knead this into a ball, and you don't wanna knead it too much because you don't want tough pie crust. Now, the directions are to cut it in half and then wrap it in plastic foil and refrigerate it for 30 minutes, which is what we're gonna do. This is supposed to give the gluten time to rest and relax, so that the pie crust itself will spread out evenly in the pan. If you leave your dough in the refrigerator for more than 30 minutes, you should let it rest for 10 to 15 minutes before you start to work it. So I have an unusually small pie pan. I don't know if this will fit, but we will try it. So I had a little bit of trouble with the first set of dough. It ended up sticking and ripping, which is what I feared would happen. Now, to remedy this, I put a piece of plastic wrap down, I put the dough on top of it, and then I put another piece of plastic wrap on top. So this is a little bit more uniform, and it should place really well in the pan. What I'm going to do is put it back in the freezer or fridge for just a few minutes so that it's cold and easier to move without ripping. And then we're going to start on the filling. Now that we have our pie shells figured out, we're gonna move on to the inside of the pie, which is the best part. On page 428 of the King Arthur Flour Baker's Companion Cookbook, you'll find the recipe for the favorite apple pie. The pie has 2 tablespoons of flour, 1 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1/2 a teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/4 a teaspoon of salt, along with 4 to 5 cups of cored, peeled, and diced sour apples, 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract, and interestingly enough, I've never seen this before in an apple pie, 2/3 a cup of light or heavy cream. So for us today, we are going to use the heavy cream, and we're going to start by the most important recipe, or the most important ingredient, the apples. Okay. So we've moved the pie crust into the pie pan. I will use a knife to cut it around the edges and make sure all the extra is removed. All right, so I think we got our pie crust figured out. It's not the best looking, however, it is on the inside, so that's all that matters. Now, King Arthur recommends that you brush the inside of the pie crust with milk or another protein like an egg white, and this will prevent the crust from becoming soggy. We're going to fill the crust with our mixture here. I hope it's not too much. I think that with this size pan, it may be too much, so we'll just have to wait and see. All right, well, I was wrong. It all fit in here. Now we're going to cover it with the top crust and hope and hope and hope that it doesn't rip. Okay, so I am removing my little self-made non-stick plastic wrap here, which turned out to be a very good idea because it was able to cover the pie and not cause too much of a mess. So now I'm just going to clean the edges and add some milk on top so that it'll turn a nice brown color. And then I'm going to add some cinnamon and some sugar on top of that for a little bit of flavor. I will cut a hole in the middle so that when the apples cook, it will release through the hole. All right, so we have added the top layer of the pie, and I made a small hole, but then I cut slits around so that the hot air could be released through the pie. Now what I'm going to do before I put it in the oven is I'm going to add the milk to the top to give color, and also add some sugar on top for the flavor. So I've added the milk and the cinnamon sugar mixture to the top of the pie, and I'm going to now transfer the pie onto a baking pan so that when it bakes, none of the juices will overflow into the oven. One of the things you can do to protect the crust of the pie is to use one of these things here, or you could use some aluminum foil if you don't have it. I got this from Pampered Chef, yay. And I'm going to put this around the pie. Now, King Arthur has specific instructions on this pie. It has to bake for 15 minutes at 450 degrees. Then after 15 minutes, you lower the heat to 350 degrees, where you would bake it for another 20 minutes. Then I'm going to remove this pie crust protector and bake it for the remaining time, which is another 15 minutes or so. Good luck. All right, our apple pie is now out of the oven. It does not look like a pie, it looks more like a crumble. I think one of the errors I made was the shortening was not cold enough. I'm sure it'll still be delicious, and like I always said, if you want to do a cook, go get a book. If you like what you saw today, smash that like button and subscribe. Comment down below if there's something that you want to see me do here at the Old Recipe Kitchen. Until next time.